Hello folks, Fuzz here, your host for the day, and this is Final Fantasy VII. I've got to be honest with you, I did not expect to still be playing this game in 2019, but here we are 22 years after its initial release, and it has just come out as of today for the Nintendo Switch and Xbox One. Now, just to clarify right up front for those of you that have just joined us, this is not the remade version of Final Fantasy VII, which is still very much in development. We haven't heard much about that for goodness knows how long now. This is the original game that has been ported over to the modern consoles, and since this is now available on Switch and Xbox One, that brings it pretty much to the entirety of the current generation of gaming systems, including PC, of course, and some systems that perhaps don't get used as often as they ought to, such as the Vita. Now, what I'm going to say is that I have played through this game many times before, so this isn't a new experience for me, though of course it could be for you. If you are interested in playing through the entirety of the game, I'll leave a link in the description to the complete video walkthrough I made for Final Fantasy VII several years ago. This is more going to be a nostalgia trip. That said, I will make videos for these and do live streams as well for as long as you guys want to go ahead and continue watching it. So without any further ado, let's get into it. This is the new game we're going to be selecting, of course. I've never played before on Switch. In fact, this is my first Final Fantasy experience on the Nintendo Switch. But if you're playing on any other system, then you can, of course, follow along anyway. Alright guys, here we go. Once more, Final Fantasy VII. Let's get started. Okay, looks like we've got the controls here. I would recommend, by the way, folks, if you've got a phone or something, or just a pen and paper, to either take a photo or jot down some of these controls, because as far as I'm aware, you're not going to be able to access this particular screen from in the game. Note as well that you are going to be able to access some quality of life cheats, I guess you could say, such as the no encounter speed ×3 and battle boosts. I'll talk about those a little bit as we play. None of those are permanent, by the way, so you can't ruin your save file by activating them. You can deactivate them at any time as well. But there's the controls, pretty simple stuff, and let's get into the opening cutscene here. You know, Final Fantasy VII was really the first game I ever played that had these awesome cinematic cutscenes. And yeah, the game's over 20 years old now, so, you know, obviously games nowadays have much higher quality than what we're seeing here. But for the time, this was a brand new experience for me, and it was incredibly exciting. Final Fantasy VII. Yes, here we go. Still probably one of my favourite Final Fantasy games of all time, if not my favourite game of all time. Probably due to nostalgia for sure, but still, so much to love about this, there really is. And if you've not played before, you're in for a wild ride, I assure you. Okay, so here we are then, getting started with the 1997 art style and sprites and pre-rendered backgrounds and the like. So once again, if you are new, the way this game is going to work is that it is a 3D game, which is the first for a Final Fantasy series. Up until Final Fantasy VI, everything was in 2D, using 2D sprites. But the way they did this for Final Fantasy VII was used what we call pre-rendered backgrounds. Basically, all the backgrounds in this game were hand-drawn by an artist, and there are hundreds of them. And then the characters interact with those backgrounds. They're kind of like map displays. But it's very seamless and it works very well. Come on, newcomer, follow me. Oh, and don't worry, I won't be reading all the dialogue. I know that tends to annoy folks. But sometimes, you know, I get a bit giddy, can't help myself. Right then, so now we get control of the main character here. We don't yet know his name, but don't worry, we will find all that good stuff out in due course. Before we go any further, let me just briefly mention some of the tips, or rather some of the cheats that we just saw we could activate, what they do, and then I'll show you briefly in the config menu how I like to set up my game going forward, which we can do right from the get-go. So on Switch, you can do this on Xbox One as well, but obviously the controls will be whatever your Xbox controller says they are. If you push in the left analog stick, then that speeds the game up by 3, and it does that by skipping out on frames. Now, we can turn that on and off at a whim like that. If we push down the right analog stick, then you get this kind of fist. That's basically indicating that you're going to be virtually invulnerable in battles. Okay, so I won't talk about how battles work just yet. All you need to know is that by activating the right stick, and that's actually pushing the button in on it, you'll make battles 10 times, if not like 100 times easier. And if you push both analog sticks in, then you get the sword crossed out. That indicates that you won't get any random enemy encounters. Now, forced enemy encounters will still be applicable. I'll show you that in a moment. If we go ahead and head to the main config menu, this looks to actually be a port of the PC version due to the fact we've got this quit option down here. And by golly, what's going on with the font? That word limit there looks completely squashed, doesn't it, compared to the rest of the words? Now, that doesn't look right. Anyway, let's go over to the config menu. And I can already see that the defaults have been changed. Interesting. So normally this field message begins in the middle there, but they've already moved it over to where I like it, which was very kind of square. Just move this over to fast. You can still read field messages at the speed you want to. It just brings the whole message up at once rather than scrolling through it slowly. Battle message I tend to recommend to keep central, and then battle speed. You might not want to move it up to fast immediately, but battles do tend to go a little bit slower if you don't. So I would recommend that. I think you'll get on absolutely fine. And then cursor I tend to just keep on initial. But some enemies are a little bit easier if you move it over to memory. But don't need to worry about that for now. Right, this first soldier here has a couple of potions. Alternatively, you can grab one potion off him and one off the soldier in front. Doesn't really matter. As you can see, we've got our first battle here, despite having the no battle encounters activated. That's simply because this isn't a random battle encounter. So we can't avoid it no matter what. And all you have to do in battle is wait for your bar to fill up on the right hand side under time. That's called the active time bar. And then you can select the action that you want to take. Now, all characters in battle will have their own active time bar. Enemies do as well, though, although theirs are hidden, so you can only see your main party members. But basically, it's a standard, old-school, turn-based battle system, but with some action elements thrown in for good measure. Right, as we come into this next awesome environment here, we're going to go ahead and approach these strange-looking individuals and see what they've got to say for themselves. So here Biggs speaks to us. Well, you used to be in Soldier, huh? Not every day you find one in a group like Avalanche. Okay, so Soldier, first hint there of some kind of weirdly named organisation, which we'll find out more about later on. But now Cloud, who is apparently ex-Soldier, is working for this ragamuffin band of, well, we'll find out soon. Soldier, aren't they the enemy? What's he doing with us in Avalanche? He was in Soldier, Jesse, but he quit and is with us now. I didn't catch your name. Yeah, so this is back in the day where you could actually still name your characters. Obviously now, with the advent of voice acting, that's not always a possibility. So for the sake of this walkthrough, I'm just going to go ahead, or rather the sake of this video, I've not said it's going to be a walkthrough yet. I'm going to go ahead and keep the default names. Although you can obviously call them whatever you want, it makes no real difference. I don't care what your names are. Oh, that's scary. I think I know the dialogue off by heart. Once this job's over, I'm out of here. The hell you all doing? I thought I told you never to move in a group. Yeah. I wonder actually how the dialogue's going to work, because the dialogue in Final Fantasy VII has a bit of history behind it. First of all, the English translation localization on the PlayStation version of the game in 1997 had quite a bit of profanity in it. And then through various re-releases that got censored or changed. And then in some later releases it was brought back. So I'd be interested to see how they go with this version of the game here, especially on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo try and tend to be a little bit more family friendly, don't they? Ex-soldier, huh? I don't trust you. And this is the one, the only Barrett. Okay, wow, they've actually gone all out. And included the Switch's control system here in the dialogue. Another cinematic cutscene here. So because of the fact that this game has cinematic cutscenes, the original release on PlayStation was actually spread over 3 discs, which was quite a rare thing. Remember, DVDs weren't really available then, so this is just your standard 600 megabyte CDs, and this game is several gigabytes in size. Interestingly, when the PC version came out the following year, that was spread over 4 discs. So, one more than the PlayStation release. And that was because you could use one of those discs to install a lot of the files over to the PC hard drive. And that just sped the game experience up a bit for you. The level system in Final Fantasy VII is pretty standard affair. This was actually the first game I ever played that had a level system. And here we are in the Mako Reactor. Yo, this your first time in a reactor? Nah, after all I did work for Shinra, you know. So now it's time for some exposition. The planet's full of Mako energy. People here use it every day. It's the lifeblood of this planet, but Shinra keeps sucking the blood out with these weird machines. So straight away we're getting, you know, some information here on Shinra. Clearly a bunch of villains destroying the planet. Good old environmentalist story. 90s environmentalist story. I'm not here for a lecture. Let's just do it. Alright, you come with me from now on. I don't know what it is, but some of the font seems a little bit out of place here. Some of the words just seem to be a little bit squished. Don't know what Square have done there to mess that up, but it never used to be the case. Code deciphered. And it looks like there's some anti-aliasing going on as well around some of these backgrounds and characters. Some of the jagged edges have been blurred, which is fine, I don't mind that, but I always prefer when they do that to older games that they give you the choice as to whether you want it or not, because, you know, having a smudged look to your game does actually obviously get rid of the jagged edges, but also provide a little bit of, I guess, a few problems on the other side of things. That you've got blurred and smudged screens rather than just jagged screens, so it'd be good to give the players a choice on, you know, what form of bad they want their game to look. Okay, so once we've spoken to Jessie there, we have access to the next set of rooms, but before we go on, there's actually an item we can go ahead and nab. This is a Phoenix Down. I'm sure many of you know already that Phoenix Downs are pretty useful items. They bring you back to life if you get knocked out in battle. But of course, if all your party members are knocked out, then it's game over. Push that button over there. It's very demanding, isn't it? Good job I'm getting paid for this. And here we go, deeper into the reactor. As Barrett comes just to remind us what it is that we're actually doing here. Little by little, the reactors will drain out all the life, then that'll be that. It's not my problem. Straight away we're seeing the type of person, the type of mercenary that Cloud is going to be, aren't we? The planet's dying, Cloud. Meh, the only thing I care about is finishing this job before security and the robo-guards come. Yeah, so basically the general gist is that there's a form of energy called Mako energy, and we don't know a whole lot about it yet, other than it seems to be some kind of lifeblood of the planet, and it's naturally forming. But Shinra, the company that built these Mako reactors, have found a way to tap into that energy and sell it for profit. And that's bad. So, your traditional anti-capitalist, environmentalist message, and we're coming to basically blow the place up. So, capitalism evil, terrorism good. Yeah, it's Final Fantasy. Honestly, guys, that's just the tip of the iceberg for this story. If you've never experienced this game before, like I said at the start, whew, just wait. Right, in we go. So we're going to speak to Jessie. Get a good old 90s tutorial here. Press A in front of a ladder to grab onto it. Then use the directional buttons to climb up and down. I'm pretty sure if I couldn't figure that out, I probably wouldn't have made it to this part of the game. Seeing as how I've been using the directional buttons and the A button several times by this point. And there's a potion here, I believe. Yep. So you can ignore Jessie. She'll just repeat the same tutorial dialogue as previously stated. Now, one thing you may notice as well if you're new to the game is this pink bar that's filling up for each character as they get hit, which is called limit. Basically, the general concept is, as your characters take damage and deal damage, they're getting, you know, kind of emotionally invested into the battle, perhaps a little bit angry once they get slapped around the face or something. And once that bar fills up, they can unleash a super powerful attack known as a limit break. That will do a whole ton of damage, or have other effects such as healing, depending on the limit that's used and the character that's using it. And then that limit bar depletes and will have to be filled up again for that limit to be reused. So it's not a complex system, but as you see it in play, it'll all make more sense, I'm sure. Right, so as we continue to head further into the reactor here, you'll see this strange crystal, and this is basically a save point. So yes, this is the traditional Japanese role-playing saving system. You cannot save everywhere you would like. You do have to wait until you can access one of these save crystals. Although on the world map a little bit later on, you can save anywhere. So there's tons and tons of places to save your game. And what I'm going to recommend is that you do actually make use of these. First of all, you might want to replay sections of the game later on that you've already played through previously. And it's pretty good just to have, you know, a bit of a reminder of where you came from in the hours that have passed. So I would tend to just keep saving in new save slots, but you can just stick to the same one if you would prefer to do so. That door, by the way, can't be accessed, so that's why I haven't tried to go through there. Looks like we're being introduced to new enemies now. These robotic creatures are called sweepers. And as you can see, they are mechanical enemies, so we're going to use Cloud's bolt magic here. And interestingly, the names of the magic in Final Fantasy VII were basically translated incorrectly from the Japanese version of the game. So the Japanese version of Final Fantasy VII uses the original traditional Japanese, or rather traditional Final Fantasy spell names, such as Fire-Gar, things like that. But in Final Fantasy VII, the Western release renamed them to Fire, Fire 2 and Fire 3. And instead of Thunder, Thunder-R, Thunder-Gar, you get Bolt, Bolt 2 and Bolt 3. Not sure why they did that. I guess they were still experimenting with how to bring these Final Fantasy games over to the West by this point. And that's the way they decided to go with. Restore materia. So that's basically a cure magic. Good for healing your party members. But we can't use it as of yet. So for now, we'll just be keeping it in our bags, and I'll talk about when we can go ahead and equip that. Right, just a heads up, you might want to go ahead and do just a little bit of grinding. It's entirely up to you. It's completely unnecessary but it will help you out if you perhaps level up to level 8 and 7, respectively for Cloud and Barrett, because once we approach this next part of the room, a boss fight shall commence. But I'm going to not go ahead and do that grind, since I'm pretty sure we can handle it. But by all means, use that save point, couple of potions, go ahead and make sure you're prepared for this particular battle. When we blow this place, it ain't going to be nothing more than a hunk of junk. Cloud, you set the bomb. Yeah, Barrett's like, oh, just wait over here. Just do it. I gotta wait to watch, rather, to make sure you don't pull nothing. Oh, fine, I'll do it. Watch out. This isn't just a reactor. Interesting. The screen went red, and Cloud heard a strange voice. Okay, obviously there's more than meets the eye to this character. Huh? What's wrong, Cloud? Hurry it up. Yeah, sorry. So it looks like we're setting the bomb. Right, also a interesting point for you. Interesting little tidbit of fact. There's actually a 10-minute countdown for this bomb that we have to escape the reactor. Now, in the Western release, that timer doesn't start until this boss is defeated. But in the original Japanese release, the timer starts immediately. The moment Cloud sets the bomb, the countdown begins. But as you can see, that isn't the case here. That will happen later on once we've gone ahead and defeated the Guard Scorpion, who is the very first boss of the game. And he's not a particularly challenging boss. He has, I think it's 800 health, which isn't really a whole lot. And a lot of his turns are taken up by casting Search Scope, which actually doesn't do anything. It just basically gives you a heads up as to who he's going to attack. And that means I'm just going to wait for my limit break here and unleash Braver. So I didn't really heal up before coming into this fight, which means that Cloud's health is a little bit on the low side, so we might just have to throw a potion on him at some point. But for now, I'm not going to be too concerned about that. We'll just continue healing, continue attacking with Cloud, and then I perhaps will throw a potion with Barrett onto him. So Bolt, as you can imagine, outside of limit breaks, is going to be the most damaging trick in our arsenal against this guy, due to the fact that he is a mechanical enemy. Now you'll note he's now put his tail up, and we get this dialogue that tells us to attack while its tail is up. It's going to counter-attack with its laser. That's basically a poor translation of don't attack while its tail's up, or it will counter-attack with its laser. So while it's just kind of chilling, we're going to chill with it. And now the tail's come down, the attacks are going to commence. If you do get an attack off while its tail is up, it will only do 50% of the damage of a normal attack. And the Guard Scorpion will hit you with an AoE attack for 75 to 80 points of damage on both party members. So yeah, best just to wait that one out. But as you can see, not really too much to this one in all honesty. Couple of brief tactics involved. But even if you just go all out, to tell you the truth, you'll probably kill this Guard Scorpion without too much trouble. And maybe Barrett will finish this with the big shot. Nope. Cloud wants the kill. And we get the good old victory dance. Hey, look at that. Just enough to level up. So, experience, of which we got 100 there, is obviously the currency for leveling up our characters. And as our characters level up, their stats increase, they become stronger, all the usual stuff. Now, AP, which you've seen that we've gained 10 off for that fight, will level up our magic spells. Okay, but only the magic spells that we have equipped. So right now that's the Bolt and Ice magic, but not the Cure magic that we looted just before that boss. So we'll see more of that in action as we actually gain access to materia equipping. And we get the Assault Gun, which is a nice upgrade for Barrett. And now that timer will commence. 10 minutes to detonation. And in all honesty, that's a whole lot of time, so don't worry so much about rushing. Even though the timer continues as we go through the various enemy encounters, it's still plenty of time. And as you saw, I just went ahead and equipped the assault gun then that we just collected on Barrett. We can go ahead and save once more. I'll just keep the same save file for now. And basically we're going to repeat the journey that we've just made here in reverse. So we're going to be climbing back up the reactor to exit it. Now here's a little thing to note. You'll see that Jessie is kind of shaking her head. She's got stuck, the poor lass. So we're going to approach her in a moment. Once these enemies have been dispatched, of course. Ah, a back attack. Back attacks are not very pleasant. They mean that your enemy is going to have the first attack. And also, the ranks of your party members are going to be reversed. Or the order of your party members, as it's called in Final Fantasy VII. So those that were on the front row will now be on the back row. Those on the back row will be put onto the front row. I might talk about that a little bit after this battle, actually, since I haven't mentioned it as of yet. It's just a little gameplay mechanic that doesn't really amount to much, but can be useful to know about. So, as you can see, both Cloud and Barrett their portraits are situated vertically the same. That's because they're both in the front row at the moment. Now, the front row means that your melee characters are going to be doing the full amount of damage with their melee weapons, but will also be taking more damage than if they were in the back row. Now, if they're in the back row, they will do less damage with their melee weapons, but will also be taking less damage. Now, ranged characters, such as Barrett, will not do reduced damage with their ranged weapons when in the back row, but will still take reduced damage. So it makes perfect sense to keep your ranged party members, such as Barrett, in the back row. They will still make full use of their full damage, but will actually not be taking as much damage. So I'm going to keep Cloud in the front and Barrett in the back. You can also change the order of your party members in battle as well, through the change command. But you're rarely going to be using that, to tell you the truth. So now you'll see that Barrett is just a couple of steps back. And we've actually got our own preemptive strike against the enemies here. Our own back attack against them, so to speak. So I think after this fight, we'll just go ahead and chuck a few potions over the place. Since it looks like our party members are getting perhaps just a little bit low on health. Maybe we could take a risk and see if we can get out of the Mako Reactor without actually using any of our item consumables. That'd be interesting. Yes, so we had to speak to Jessie, did I mention that? As she just kind of glides up the ladder there. Yeah, it's been a couple of glitches, I've got to be honest with you, so far with this port over to the Switch. Gliding characters. Squishy text fonts. It's not absolutely peachy over in Port Town right now, is it? Okay, we're going to head back into the lift. And there's no dialogue this time to interrupt us, so this will just take us straight to the next floor. And we can go ahead and exit. Now, if you didn't rescue Jessie, you're going to be in trouble because you need her to unlock the door here. But don't worry, as you can see, we've still got 6 minutes to go, and we're basically about to exit the area anyway. So you would still have plenty of time to go back and get her if you did forget about her for whatever reason. And it's nice to see that Barrett's able to one-shot these enemies thanks to his new assault gun. Don't forget as well, there was an item in that room, so if you want a Phoenix down, if you didn't forget, or if you forgot to grab that previously, you can still do so now. But of course we did. And once speaking to Biggs, he unlocks the final door and we are home free. And now we get to see the fruits of our labour. Here we go. Sparkle, sparkle, boom. Sorry to all the innocent people that might have been nearby. But there we have it. The Mako Reactor has been destroyed. But as you could probably see in that cinematic, it wasn't the only reactor. That should keep the planet going at least a little longer. Yeah. Okay, now everyone, get back. Alright then, folks. So that's going to be the last bit of action that we see for a while. Need to keep our heads down now, really. First, of course, we just need to make our escape here. Alright, now let's get out of here. Be interested in seeing how that entire sequence of the Mako Reactor plays out during the remake of Final Fantasy VII in the glorious next generation visuals, which it will no doubt be released on the next generation, since we're already talking about PS5 and Xbox 2 or whatever it's going to be. Hey! If it's about your money, wait till we get back. Fair enough. Right then, nothing to do in this area, so we're going to head out into the main city of Midgar. And one of the standout features of Final Fantasy VII is the soundtrack. I just love the musical score to this game. This particular track is known as Anxious Hearts. And there's something terribly nostalgic about it for me. Not sure what it is, but it is music to my ears, literally. Excuse me? What happened? So we can choose some dialogue here. You'd better get out of here. And nothing. Hey. Now, actually, the dialogue we choose could potentially have an effect on a sequence that plays out later on. Bit concerned about how much to tell you about it because of spoilers, but if you're going to be getting all the trophies, then potentially you're going to have to pay attention to this one. Okay, so the option you're going to want to select if you're going for all the trophies is Nothing Hey. If you select You Better Get Out of Here, then the Flower Girl will leave immediately, but this allows for further dialogue and interaction. Okay, and then the next option we're going to select is Don't See Many Flowers Around Here. And then we're going to go ahead and use 1 gil, which is the currency of Final Fantasy, of course, to purchase a flower. Okay, and that flower is going to come into use later on. Once you're ready, we can head down into the next screen. There's going to be an item to grab in this particular area. Looks like everybody's going crazy. So there has just, of course, been quite a major explosion at the Mako Reactor. I'm assuming that everybody's terribly confused about what's going on. Was it an accident? Was it a deliberate act? Nobody really knows, do they? We can chat to some of these folks. Some of them look quite calm, actually. Look, all he cares about is what's on the wall over here. Don't be fooled by Shinra. Mako energy doesn't last forever. Mako is the planet's life source. The end is in sight. Seems like a bit of graffiti, perhaps by Avalanche. Yep, there we have it. And we'll just kind of jerk our way into the next screen. And we also have a choice here. I'm just going to select later. You need to be quite quick in these selections. You can choose to fight these enemies, but there's really no need to. You will get a little bit of experience from them, but plenty of opportunities to do that later. For the sake of moving things along, I recommend you just select the later option and be done with them. And it's another cutscene time. Yeah, some of these cutscenes use the field models as opposed to the cinematic models. Cloud never came. Cloud, think he was killed? No way. Cloud. Say, do you think Cloud's gonna stay on and fight for Avalanche? How the hell would I know? Do I look like a mind reader? If you all weren't such screw-ups. Hey, Barrett, what about our money? Yeah, nothing. Sorry. Cloud! Hey, looks like I'm a little late. You're damn right you're late. Come waltzing in here making a big scene. It's no big scene, just what I always do. Yep, looks like they're bleeping out, censoring the language for profanity in this version of the game. Having everyone worried like that, you don't give a beep about no one but yourself. You were worried about me. What? Right, that's coming out of your share, hotshot. We're moving out, follow me. Okay, so it seems we're heading back to the hideout then, the Avalanche hideout. As I mentioned, we need to keep our heads down for a little while now. Oh, Cloud, your face is pitch black. She seems like a nice girl, does Jessie, doesn't she? Say, thanks for helping me back there at the reactor. She's a bit like the mother of the group, isn't she? Right, so all we can do now pretty much is just wait for the train journey to conclude. And it won't do so automatically. We're going to have to push our way through certain pieces of dialogue to advance the game into allowing us to dock the train. Just some random Shinra worker there on his way home from work, probably to see his family. And I've got to be honest, people are seen mightily relaxed. Maybe random terrorist acts are just all too common now in the world of Midgar. Okay, so what you want to do is go ahead and speak to Jessie here. If we can just try and orient Cloud correctly. There we go. And she will want to show us something here on the monitor. And basically, she's just going to be explaining to us how the city of Midgar works in terms of its infrastructure. And this is a kind of underground city, in the sense that the vast majority of it is covered by a giant plate, a giant roof. And that roof or plate is supported by several large pillars, and at the end, on the circumference of the plate, going all the way around the city, are the 8 Mako reactors, and of course we've destroyed one. So as you can probably imagine, Midgar sounds very much like a police state. There's automatic checkpoints and ID scans and just all sorts that check the, not necessarily the identity of each passenger, but the backgrounds of them as well. Right, what we're going to do now is head over to Barrett. Look, you can see the surface now. This city doesn't have no day or night. If that plate weren't there, we could see the sky. A floating city. Pretty unsettling scenery. Huh? Never expect to hear that out of someone like you. You're just full of surprises. The upper world, a city on a plate. It's because of that bleep pizza that people underneath are suffering. And the city below is full of polluted air. So basically it sounds like all the rich kids get to live on top of the plate, and then all their fumes come down to the plate, underneath the plate, toward the slums and the working class areas of people that live underneath it. Yeah, why doesn't everyone move on to the plate? Dunno, probably because they ain't got no money, or maybe because they love their land no matter how polluted it gets. I know, no one lives in the slums because they want to. It's like this train, can't run anywhere except where its rails take it. Now we just get a pretty nice overview of the city here. At least the underplate version of the city. And that is a lot more than 50 metres, which is, I'm pretty sure, what they said earlier. Oh, by the way, one thing you could do, I should have mentioned this. Sorry. You can speak to Jessie for a second time before speaking to Barrett, and she'll give you another dialogue option, and if you choose looking forward to it, it'll make you slightly more, or push you slightly towards getting the trophy later on that you can get from choosing the correct dialogue options, but you don't have to do that one, which is why I didn't bother, but you might want to. So we'll approach the group here. Yeah, probably should perhaps get to the hideout, Barrett, before just talking with our big mouths in the middle of the public here. Especially with Shinra guards just a few metres away. Meet back at the hideout. Move out. Right, that Shinra guard there, he's rubbish at his job. You got to admit, that was pretty suspicious, that kind of conversation, wasn't it? You can head to the right if you want, but there's not a whole lot to do there in the train graveyard. So we're just going to move forward. Interestingly, these two guys here have quite a strange conversation. It's completely optional, but you might want to check this out. I'm not letting you go tonight. Wow. Isn't there somewhere we could go to be alone? Wow. There's only the train graveyard around here, and they say there's ghosts around too. Beep. What? I think if we speak to them enough... No, I think it's later on actually. Something else happens, but as you can see, very, very, very strange dialogue there. Okay, so there's a save point here, which we're going to be making use of. We can actually speak to this guy here. What on earth are you doing? Huh? You came to see it too? There was a bombing on top. If this pillar should come down, everyone in the slums is dust. well, there's no point worrying about that. And he's going to show us the pillar, which is one of the things we spoke of earlier. This is, supporting the giant plate above. One of the pillars that's supporting the giant plate above. Take a good look, because we'll be up there later. Okay, now just before we save, something I would like to point out to you. Barrett wants us to head over there, and that's where we need to go as far as the story is concerned, because the hideout is that way. But if you head down south, there's an exit off the screen, but there's 2 guards blocking the way. And they have some pretty funny dialogue, basically telling us that they're not going to let us pass. But interestingly, they never let us pass. As in, throughout the entire game, there is never a moment we are ever able to gain access to whatever it is that's past these guards. So I'm not sure whether there was ever going to be something that way, and Square didn't actually finish developing the area, so they put these guards there. But I'm pretty sure when they designed this background, this pre-rendered background, that this was going to lead to somewhere. We're just never going to find out where, unfortunately. Alright then folks, well I think we'll call it quits there. So I do plan to go ahead and stream some of this game as well, so hopefully you guys will come back and check that out. But also, as I say, if you're looking for a complete walkthrough of Final Fantasy VII, check out the 50 plus videos that I made previously. I'll leave a link to that in the video description, and that'll guide you through the entire experience of the game. But that's it for me for today, so thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you soon. Take care.